Q&A. I'm Nikki Christmas, and we've got Sherwin Weber and Amanda Vinci with us as well, your coaches on the Strategic Assistant course. So the overall objective for today is really to get questions from you guys around the content that's already gone out over the last, it's 5 weeks now. I can't quite believe it's already 5 weeks has gone past, but we've done 5 modules and we've covered a lot of content. And we really want to hear from you. If you have any questions, then please do let us know. And over the next hour, we'll try to get as many questions answered as possible. We do have some questions that some of you have already sent in, so we'll make sure that we answer those as well. I also want to make sure that you all can hear us okay. So just on the chat, if you can let us know that you are with us and that you can hear me okay and you can see me okay, that would be great. I'm just opening up the chat. Oh, I can hear you. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. So as I said, we've got Sherwin and Amanda with us today. So hi guys, how are you? How's everything going?
Yeah,
hello. Good. Hi guys. So awesome to be here with you today. I'm really looking forward to this evening's or this morning's session for you. Evening for me over in Melbourne.
And Sherwin, how's everything with you?
Yeah, everything's good. Hello everyone. Welcome to the session. As Amanda said, we're really excited to finally see the names and the faces that have taken the course. I hope you guys are enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the session. Thanks, Nikki.
Brilliant. So I just thought I'd do a quick reminder of everything that we've covered over the last 5 weeks. I know it's we've packed a lot into this course, and every week there's something different. So I wanted to do a quick reminder of what we've covered. So week 1, we covered how to build trust, loyalty, honesty, and respect with your executive. We then moved into how you can be more intentional in your role. We looked at what your executive needs to do to support your partnership. We talked a little bit about communication. And lastly, this week, we are looking at how you can work within the inner circle and how you can build influence with your executive and your executive's direct reports and the executive team. So as I said, we've covered a lot. If you do have any questions around any of that content, then that would be great. I want to go into the first question that one of our students asked, and it's a really good one. It's not something that we've covered yet, but I think it's something that kind of underpins the role of the strategic assistant, and that is around emotional intelligence. So Amanda, why don't we start with you? One of our students asked that they've been hearing a lot about emotional intelligence and how it's important for assistants. Do you have any tips on, well, first of all, what do you think of when you think of emotional intelligence and assistance?
Yeah, I think that emotional intelligence is an interesting one because there are so many different ways. It's such a broad topic. It's so big. And I think because of that, people can get really confused around bringing it back to the basics when it comes to emotional intelligence. When I think of emotional intelligence, I think of awareness. So your ability to be self-aware of how you do things. I think that firstly, it always starts with ourselves. And if we're unable to recognize how we operate, unable to recognize why we do what we do, it's going to be really hard for us to do that with other people in the work environment. So, some of the best executive assistants or administrators are able to really read the play and understand what is going on for people. And that's a big part of emotional intelligence. So if we bring it back to the basics, I would say having a really great sense of what are the things that make you tick? What are the things that have you react? What are your reactions? What are the things that frustrate you? Really understanding, the basic fundamentals of the way that you operate and taking that time to first see it for yourself. Some great things that I have recommended in the past is, just self-reflection. So something as simple as at the end of your day, taking some time to just reflect on the day that's been, maybe notice what have been some things that have triggered you today. What have been some frustrations that you've had today? How did you react to that? maybe observing those things in other people. It's becoming an observer of life, I think, a lot of what emotional intelligence entails. But I think that the reflection is an easy thing that people can implement straight away, and it would immediately create a big change. In fact, one of the trainings that we run, I always really highlight that if you just start taking some time to have a level of awareness, that's going to transform everything. That's the first step. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know why you're doing it. And then if you can see it, then you've got access to change it. But until then, you've got no access to change nothing. You need to know what you're doing first. So it's a really, really big part for me. I would say probably one of the most critical parts of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So there's Bill. Somebody started drilling. I don't know if people can hear that I'm in my flat, in my apartment, and someone above me is drilling. So I hope that that's not coming through on the Zoom call. Sherwin, over to you. What do you think are kind of some of the emotional intelligence tricks or tips that you can give to assistants? Because I think it's something that all of the assistants I've met, I think one of the emotional intelligence pieces that comes in is empathy. And so many of us have that so innately in ourselves. That's some kind of why so many of us have ended up being assistants. Do you see that as being kind of an innate part of the role?
Yeah, so I mean, thinking about it, as Amanda said, self-awareness is obviously quite big, but then associated with that is the ability to be empathetic to everyone around you, and also to kind of understand where people are in their lives or in their workplace at the stage. I think if we look at COVID, if we take this lockdown situation that everyone's facing at the moment, that is a big businesses, I don't think, haven't really taken into account the emotional aspect of working from home. So I think if you especially with assistants, I mean, none of us are now face to face with our executives, our bosses. So you kind of thumbsuck as to what they're going through or how they are reacting in their daily lives. I mean, their diaries are probably full, and all you're trying to do is make sure that things run smoothly. But I mean, self-awareness, empathy is a big thing, self-regulation. And I don't think people talk about self-regulation a lot. Self-regulation is a big thing. Seeing how people react to you and then making sure that you are reacting or regulating the way you are speaking to them, or the way you come across, or your body language and things like that. Those are intelligence. What I also think comes along with empathy is to almost develop like a somatic vocabulary where you actually think about the way you are communicating with people. So the way you're standing, the way is your brow, do you have a furrowed brow when you're talking to someone? Because that's also types of things that people pick up. And they will immediately think that you are angry or you've come with a problem. So thinking about how you come across and how you present when dealing with people is a big part of emotional intelligence. The other thing is giving yourself the time to recognize their feelings and then align yourself to their feelings. Because there's nothing worse than going in, knowing someone's angry, and you going in angry because you're never going to solve something. So trying to understand where they're coming from and then aligning your feelings to what they're feeling and seeing where you can help them is a big part. And that all ties back into the empathy part. Those are a few things. Being aware of how you affect others is a big part of emotional intelligence. Seeing the effect you have on others or asking others for their perspective, and then being open to that feedback. And that feedback loop is a really big part of emotional intelligence, is being able to give and receive feedback. Yeah, I mean, like I said, observe your reactions to people and then take responsibility. And this is what people don't talk about when they talk about emotional intelligence. They talk about the high level aspects of it, but they don't talk about, you've got to take responsibility for how you react in a situation. And once you start taking responsibility, you are more able to adapt how you come across or how you talk or how you receive people's feedback. And that then elevates your level, or I call it your level of emotional intelligence in your role.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, isn't it? And I guess the first step is understanding, I think going back to what Amanda was saying, is understanding your triggers, understanding why you react in certain situations and what that situation is and why the reaction happens. And sometimes that's a simple thing, as Amanda said, at the end of the day, thinking to yourself, okay, how did the day go? Play it through. What could you improve? What were some of the things that you could be a bit more aware of? And then that builds into actually when the event is happening, taking that second or taking that bit of time and pausing and thinking about, okay, how am I going to react to this, and just checking how your communication works. Do you think that's the kind of first steps first, getting that self-awareness and being able to have the confidence to take the time before you reply?
Yes. Yeah. And then, as you were saying, it's actually taking in what someone else is saying and then processing it before you answer back. Because I think a lot of people, we're all built to listen, to react, or to reply. But it actually takes quite a bit of work to listen, to understand, and then process, and then reply. And I think that also ties nicely into emotional intelligence, is actually listening to what they say and why they're saying it, processing it in your mind, and then replying out with something that is beneficial to both you and the person that you're speaking to.
Yeah, if we bring Amanda back in, because you've done an amazing session for us on effective listening. And I love that phrase. I use it all the time now around stingy listening. But if there's anything you can add there, Amanda, around building in that, being able to effectively listen so that you're responding in the way that somebody actually wants you to, having listened effectively to what they were saying.
I think Sharon, you've touched on it perfectly. I think, fundamentally, we are really bad at listening. We are always listening to respond and usually get our own point across. And we might think we're great at listening, but a lot of the time we're not the greatest. And it's the first thing I always ask people is, who here thinks they're a great listener? And everyone's like, oh, I'm a great listener. And then when we start doing some of the work, it's like, oh, this is something I'm really not that good at. We can be quite stingy in our approach when we're listening to people. We're listening for what we want to hear, not really listening to understand. So to Sherwin's point, one thing that we don't do when we're listening is we're not engaged in a way where we're listening to understand what that person is saying. If we bring in that approach, we start to actually engage in the conversation. And when we're engaged in the conversation, we're often not going to find ourselves getting caught in our internal dialogue, our background conversations. I know I can be the first person to put my hand up and say that happens to me. It happens to all of us. Sometimes we're watching, especially now more than ever, we're online more than we've ever been, sitting through Zoom meetings, sitting through online virtual meetings all day long. It can be very hard to be engaged throughout that time without having your brain and your mind go off and thinking about, what are you going to do later today? What are you having for lunch? What are you going to do tomorrow? It's the natural way of us being. So I always am encouraging that element of seeking to understand, because when you seek to understand, you're going to be way more engaged in the conversation. You're going to ask questions. You're going to be really effective at sitting in rather than being an observer, which a lot of us can be in. I think that's a really important part here.
Absolutely. So as I said, everyone, we've got time for questions. So if there's anything that comes up from what we're discussing, let us know. If you have any questions around the content, then I will make sure that we get that covered. Hannah has said stingy listening was a revelation. It absolutely was for me as well. In the module where you're showing the examples of people not listening, it was like a mirror being held up, especially with my other half.
Yes. It always happens with the ones that we love the most, right? And I think that, you know, I'm not quite, I can't quite remember if I shared this in that video or not, but there was one that really shows up for me, a person that I was doing this training with, and she was sharing about how she went home that night and straight away noticed it with her son. So her son had came back from daycare, 5 years old, and he was talking about his day, and she was doing the dishes, and as we all do, we're doing other things. And then she realized, and she stopped and gave him full attention. He was just like blown away, like, what are you doing, Mum? So we do it so much. So I'm so glad to hear that, Hannah, that it was a revelation. You'll see it everywhere now. That's the problem with awareness. Once we see it, we can't unsee it. So it becomes a bit of a challenge there as well.
Yes, then it becomes a point of it not annoying you in other people, which is a whole other lesson that we probably should discuss. One of the other questions that came up was something I think that particularly at the moment, so many people will be struggling with, because we're not getting that one-to-one contact with our executives, and we're not able to just simply walk into their office and ask them things. But we also had a question around an executive not being able or not responding to emails that they've sent where they are requiring action. And what are some of the best tactics to help with that? So Sherwin, if we could bring you in there. Again, if you could just let us know a little bit about what's happening with you at the moment. Are you working remotely from your executives, and how are you managing the communications?
Yeah, so I've been working remotely for the last, I think, 7 months now, working remotely, trying to assist 3 of them with their day. And what I think has kind of helped is that when we went into our remote working environment, what we did was I made time in their diaries for us to catch up every single day. And I did that because in the office, you'd have the time every single day to do it. So yes, people say it's always, they're on the go. They're always busy. They're on Zoom calls or virtual meetings. But what I did was I said, well, if you can't do 8 to 5, let's meet at 7:30. And I know for some people it's not you're not able to do it. But I mean, even if you're taking 10 minutes before the actual meeting starts, what I normally do is I start at 7:30, and I have 10-minute calls with each of the 3 that I support. And I go through the things that I think are important to them, because to them, the only thing that's important is what's going to be happening on the screen for the day. And they lose focus as to what is really important in their inbox. And I'm lucky enough to be able to see all of their inboxes. And I reply to most of the emails, but where I need their input, I will actually put it as part of my 10-minute call. So we divide the call up, 7 minutes for me and 3 minutes for them. It's a 70-30 split because I tell them I do majority of the work. And then I go through those questions and I say, these are the emails that I need answers to. And I will reply on your behalf. And making sure that you're getting the right answers. So understanding what's in the inbox is first and foremost very important. Understanding what is needed and what action is needed out of those emails are important. But then also being able to articulate to the recipient or the sender what answers they want. So again, there was a question about asking the right questions. And that is part of my daily 10-minute call is I ask the right questions so that I can get the right answers to respond. And then we have a touch point at the end of the day. Normally you would walk into your boss's office at the end of the day and say, cheers, I'm off. Or if they leave before you, they'll come and they'll drop a pile on your desk, or they'll say something to you. I want to make it as it was in the office. So I would have a 5-minute call, or I'd send them a text, or I'd send them a WhatsApp, or I'd send them an email, and I'd basically brief them for the next day. And I'd say, I'll see you tomorrow morning, 7:30, 7:45, whatever the time is. I'll see you then, and we'll chat about these 3 points. Making the agenda for that meeting is also very important, because often what happens is you get into that meeting and you just waffle on about stuff that isn't really important. And by the time you get to a 2-minute warning, you're going, I haven't asked you all of these questions, and you don't have the time to do it. So make the agenda and then ask the right questions in that meeting at the beginning of the day, and then do a wrap up at the end of the day. That's what I do. And I've started seeing that it actually does help. It's come a bit late in the game, but I have seen that it has helped with actually getting actions done, emails answered, the right questions answered, so that I can go back to the rest of the business and go, actually, this is what he's doing or she's doing. And these are the answers that you need.
I think as well, it's worth, because this is a problem I think that a lot of assistants have now more than ever, but has been a general problem, because as you said, your executive is so focused on the present and potentially the next meeting that they often don't have an awareness of what needs to be done around them. And it's often the case where you have to make the decision making super easy for them. And it's, can you get those questions down to a yes or no answer, or one decision or the other, just so that it's so simple, and then you can go away and get that done. And it's about building in that the pre-work, so you get it down to a simple yes or no answer for them. Amanda, would you agree with that?
Completely agree with everything that's been said. I was actually just working with an EA recently, same challenge. I think everyone's dealing with this challenge right now in different ways. How do we create that connection when we're remote? How do we keep each other informed when we're remote? It's a big one right now. And I couldn't agree more with both comments. Sherwin, your ability to be in their calendar and meet with them is so critical. It's just as critical, but it's actually more critical now that you're not in the office. And that's the first thing that so many people have found has actually dropped since working remotely. And it's the one thing that actually needs to get put back in, and there needs to be a demand of it happening. So it's not oh, it will be great, don't worry, move me. There needs to be some really strong expectations set, both with your executive and with you. So it's a matter of having that conversation. You know, Sherwin talks about the chemistry session. It's almost redoing that now that you're working from home, like really recreating it. So pretty much just do Sherwin's session with your executive now working from home. And one of those things should be having that meeting, and that needs to be a regular thing. So couldn't agree more with Sherwin's point. I think the other thing too, to Nikki's point, is that a lot of the time, what I find can sometimes get in the way, coaching both executives and EAs, is that from an executive's perspective, they are, if they're looking at the calendar and seeing your meeting coming up, and they come to that meeting with the expectation that they're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, it can be a frustration for them. Yeah. And that can be a big issue when it comes to EAs and executives supporting one another. Your role as an assistant is to get in there and literally make their job easier. If they're jumping on a call with you and you're making it harder for them, the first thing they're going to do when they see your appointment come up is go, oh, I don't want to get on this call because I'm going to leave it with 10 more things to do, and I don't have time for that. So the thing that I'd be asking is you know, to Nikki's point, what can I do? And Sherwin's also touched on this. What's everything that I can do leading up to this call so that I can get on this call with them and I'm actually making their job easier? And really start asking those questions. What do I need to, what's all the work that I need to do? So I just need to get quick yes or no's from them. And, you know, sometimes, of course, it's going to need to be a little bit more than that. But, you know, the thing that I would be asking is, what am I doing everything, or could I be doing more? And I think that a good little indication that might be happening is if your executive is skipping on your meetings. So if they're avoiding your meetings, maybe it's because it feels like every time you have those meetings that they walk away with more. It's not because they don't know the value of them. Usually they do understand the value. It's just that they don't know what's missing, and usually this is a big one.
Yeah, I think as well, just going back to the email point as well, it's just making sure that that's their preferred communication method as well. Is it that they're rubbish on email? Could it be worth sending them a WhatsApp message or phoning them? Or just make sure that communication channel is the correct one for the things that you're asking as well. I would say that too. We've got a couple of comments that I just want to read out, and I think it's really interesting for us when we look at where we all are, because I think there is the assumption most of us are working from home, but I know some of us are back in the office now. So Sally said we're currently working in the office 3 days a week, so that it's a blended working basis. I have a system in their email where I flag anything that needs their attention and also flag everything I've dealt with on their behalf. That's fantastic. Lisa has said that they've been back on campus since August. It worked really well as we still have regular catch-ups with our executive. And Tracy said we adapted really well to working remotely and have the benefit of a blended working. So not only can we have our face-to-face one-to-one meetings with our executives, but also cross-office conversations. It's definitely, it's a mixture, isn't it? It's been so different for so many assistants. That is absolutely true. I think I want to go back to, sorry, go on, Sean.
Sorry, just touching on your what you just said about their preferred communication style. So often assistants just think that everything needs to, so you need proof that you've done something. So what do? You send an email, yeah? You need proof.
So true.
Text. I am of the opinion that not everything needs proof, because the proof is in the pudding, and when you get something done, that is your proof that it's done. I have a saying that I have on my desk at work, and is it, if it needs more than a 2-minute conversation, or if it's less than a 2-minute conversation, send an email. If it's more than a 2-minute conversation, go do it face to face, because what happens is when you do it face to face is you actually get that person's reaction to the question. You don't often get the reaction when they reply to your emails. And what happens often when you send your boss an email, they reply with one-word answers, and you're still left wondering what you need to do. So I always say, pick up the phone or go and do it face-to-face, because, and that's why it's so important, like you said, to not skip those one-on-one meetings. And don't do it via the telephone if you can help it. Try and do it, if you remotely, do it via Teams or do it via WhatsApp call or FaceTime or whatever. Use a preferred method where you can actually see what their reaction is to the questions that you're asking. Again, when you spoke about making sure that you kind of drill it down so that they only have 2 options is very important. And like Amanda says, you don't want to be giving them work to do after your call. You want to be at the end of the call, go, those were the questions, and I have answers to every single one of them. And they don't have to worry about it because I can sort it out. So I just wanted to make that point, that sending an email doesn't necessarily cover your behind, or doesn't really show a trail of you doing something, but actually getting it done, and then all you need to do is just inform them that this is done. And that's why we have that meeting at the end of the day. So I can say, those 10 things that I spoke to you this morning, they're all done, they're complete, don't worry about it. I like the way Sally said that she flags everything in her boss's diary or in the boss's emails, but don't you hate it when you go back the next day and all those flags are still there and you don't know what they've done? So often what I'd do is in the middle of the day, I'd go there and I'd actually go and have another meeting with them and go, okay, it's time for us to deflag. What have you done and what haven't you done? And if not, I'm going to take these 5 flags and I'm going to take them and I'm going to take them away from you. It's almost like being a school teacher and saying, you haven't done your homework, so I'm taking it away now and I'm going to do it myself. Because that's what we are. We end up being school teachers and we end up taking things away and then having to do it ourselves, or getting the answers and replying on our executives' behalf. So making sure that I use the flag system too, but I mean, in the evening, I spend about an hour just deflagging everything, because they'll let me know they've done it, but they haven't deflagged it. So tomorrow I've got the same flags up, and then you spend most of your time talking about flagged items that have already been done.
Yeah, you've touched on such a good point there, which I think is something that's so simple and fundamental when you think about our role as an assistant. It's getting things done, isn't it? It really is that consistency, because actually what I realized, over so many years now, is that's really hard to do. Getting a task and completing it through to the finishing point, so many people aren't good at that. And that's such a skill that we have, that consistency and that drive to see a simple task or a big project through from start to completion is something that we are so good at. And that so many other people in the organisation aren't. They don't have that drive and consistency. So getting the stuff done really is the fundamental part of the role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I want to come back to some of the other questions that we've been asking, that we've looked at over the course of the last 5 weeks. And Amanda, I'll come back to you on this, and Sherwin, I'll bring you in as well. I think one of the huge points that we've talked about over the last 5 weeks, and I think something that really underlines the role is around asking good questions. And I just wanted to delve into that a little bit more, because I think it's one of the thing that helps us build our strategic awareness and our business acumen, and it helps us really start to understand our executive, and it really starts to show that we know what we're doing when we start to ask good questions. So Amanda, if I bring you in, can you give us a little bit more detail on how you start to think about the questions that you want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are so many different ways that we can approach asking questions. I think that, if I think about myself as an executive assistant earlier on in my career, one of the biggest barriers that got in the way of asking questions wasn't necessarily what questions to ask. It was that I thought that I should know. I thought that I should have the answer already. I should know that by now. I couldn't ask that because I would look stupid. So I really want to highlight that before we go into the how, because I think that a lot of the time it's not necessarily what question to ask, it's that we don't feel like we should ask. And I think that somewhere along the lines, there's that little grace period when you start in a new job where you feel like you can ask all the questions in the world and you can ask questions about everything. And then surely after a couple of weeks, you start getting to that point where you feel like, and of course, this is all made up because it's definitely not true. But somewhere in the lines, we start feeling like we can't ask anymore. We should know that by now. And I think that is probably one of the fundamental beliefs, the biggest belief that needs to be thrown into the bin right now, because asking questions actually shows that you are interested to learn. And that is one of the best qualities in a strategic assistant, or one of the best qualities in any person in an organization, is someone's ability to seek to understand versus just, being there and just going along with what's being said. And I think that one of the things that I actually started doing well and truly earlier, when I realized that this was a barrier for me in my learning ability, was that I would look at documents that I would be reading for my executive, and anything that I did not understand, I would be highlighting and finding out what that was. So I would highlight the document, underline it, and then go back to it and write down a whole bunch of notes. And that allowed me to know what questions to ask in the earlier stages. But if we go to kind of an overview around how to ask questions, I think that, one of the things that I always encourage people to do is to bring almost that childlike curiosity to everything that we do in our job. Almost come at it like I, want to understand how everything works, like a child does. If you've got children, or you've got children around you, or if you just think about what it's like with children when they're in that early stage of learning, they want to know about everything. They want to know why that happens. Why does this happen? Why do you do that way? Why would you do that instead of this? They are asking questions and they are curious about every single thing. And this is something that we need to bring back into our roles. And I think that that's probably the first thing to be mindful of when you're thinking about questions to ask. It's coming from a place of, what don't I understand here? Or what things might I just go, oh, I don't get that, but I'll, move on from it. And then stopping yourself and going, well, I actually don't understand that. So what do I need to do to understand? So that's the first part. And then I think the other part to this is, Sherwin touched on it earlier in terms of, taking that time to process when someone's speaking. Sometimes in the moment, we might not have the questions that we need to ask. Maybe it's because we're learning this skill for the first time and we're not comfortable to just, roll out these questions. Or maybe it's someone that speaks really fast and you're on the spot and you just don't know yet. You're still learning that skill. Sherwin's point was to take yourself away, process the conversation, think about it, and then maybe go back. And I think that's a really critical piece here when learning this skill, because it is a skill around questioning. So, after you have a conversation with your executive, maybe go back and think about it, process it, and think about, what do I not understand in that I need to gain more clarity around? Now, as you start building this muscle, you'll be able to find yourself asking more on the fly, so you won't need to go and process as much. But in that early stage, you will definitely need to do that, and that's okay too. The other thing that I'll say is that there's also the two frames. If we look at, there's so many different ways that you can ask questions, but if we go as simple as open and closed questions, a lot of people find themselves asking closed questions when they actually want an open answer. So what I mean by that is your executive might come back after a meeting and you say, how was that meeting, right? And they respond with, good, the meeting was good. And then you go, okay, but what do I need to do? What's the next steps? What happens next? Do I need to follow anything up? Do you need me to do anything? So there's a whole bunch of things that we're wanting them to respond with, but we don't ask the right question. We ask a closed question, which is a yes, no, a good, bad. It's just a one answer response. So really thinking about what outcome do I want here? Well, actually what I want to know is what do I need to do, potentially, if we use that example. What do I need to know? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? They're two things that show up immediately. And then asking your question to be framed more around that. So how was your meeting? And is there anything that I need to know, or is there anything I need to do? And maybe give me some context about what happened. So then that way you've got more understanding. And all of a sudden, by saying, give me more context, it opens the question up for them to start giving you some feedback around what happened. So, I think closed and open questions is probably the simplest way to start and an easy place to start when you're learning this technique. But, I really think go back to thinking about what are some of the barriers that you might have around questioning, because I think that is probably one of the biggest things that get in the way of people even asking. It's not necessarily what questions, it's that, I should know, I've been doing my job for 2 years now, I should definitely know what that means. I think back to one of my earlier roles as an assistant, and we used a lot of acronyms, so shortenings of words, and there were heaps of acronyms that I just did not know. Like, I didn't know, and I didn't ask. I didn't know earlier, and I didn't ask, and then it got too late in my job, at least I thought, to go and ask the question. So, it's those simple things that you go, why do we do this? We just hold ourselves, we hold ourselves back ultimately. So I think looking at that belief is a really big part.
Yeah, I think as well, it's really, I found one of the things really helpful, because I was similar to you. I worked in an industry where there was a lot of acne. I'll try that word again. And I won't, I'll just move on. And I used to work for committees that just used to use all of this different jargon and all of these different things, and I was taking the minutes, not understanding what they were saying. And I remember that what I did notice in one particular committee, which was to do with forensic accounting, so it was a tough subject. There was a guy who loved the sound of his own voice. He loved being asked questions. He loved the topic. He was so passionate about it. So during the lunch breaks, and they used to stay for drinks after the committee meetings, I used to single him out, because I knew I would get answers to the questions that I asked, and I wouldn't feel stupid, because I knew that he loved giving me the answers. So there's always somebody in an organisation where you can practice asking questions, because they're going to enjoy giving you the answers as much as they are you asking them the questions. So I think there's ways you can practice asking questions as well, where you don't feel maybe as silly, or that you should know the answers, if you find those people that are willing to spend the time answering the questions for you. Sherwin, I want to bring you in on a topic that I know we're going to go into much more detail in the next few modules, and that's around building your business awareness and your strategic thinking. I know that you work in an industry that is similar to what we've been talking about, where there's lots of jargon and technical aspects in what you do. So I wanted to ask how you built that awareness in the role, and what you've done to make sure that you continue to understand the strategy of the organisation and the goals and objectives.
So currently there's loads of jargon. I mean, I sit in meetings and I go, okay, and I, like Amanda says, I jot it all down, and at the end of the day I go to Google and I type in all of these things, and sometimes they give me the right answer and sometimes they don't. But what my boss and I did, or my executive and I did, was we actually made a rule in the meeting, and we said, we're not going to do any acronyms. If you're talking about assets under administration, we're not going to call it AUA. We're going to actually say it out as if there was someone sitting in the meeting that was not familiar, that was from outside the organization. So we killed off acronyms straight away. We also then said to all the executives that when you write a report for my exec and she's got to review it before handing it into the board, you have to come and dictate or read it off so that she can hear what you were trying to say. Because a lot of the time people write and what you read and what they meant to write are two different things. But what I did was I started getting involved in all of the detail of those meetings. So I started going to the board meetings, even though there was someone to take minutes. I sat at the back of the room and I just listened. And I listened to understand and listened to kind of formulate my own opinion of what was happening. And I think that's most important going forward into a strategic role, is to understand not only what you need to do for your executive, but what the entire organization is trying to do. Because what we tend to do as executives is you start a role, and let's say you start in finance and you're the assistant to the CFO, you kind of focus on just what's happening in the finance world. And I found being strategic enough to support my boss, who was the operator, the CEO of the business, was that I needed to know what was happening throughout the business. And I started going to those meetings, not to take minutes, because I hate taking minutes, but I went there because I wanted to understand what was going on. In my own way, I wanted to know, so that if anyone came to me with a question for my boss or a question for someone else, I could respond with an answer. Knowing the company's vision is very important, because I think you're part of building that vision. I think assistants, and in my module of building it in a circle, I say assistants often sit outside that circle, and that's where you kind of stay because you think that's your place, is outside of the office, where actually your place, your place is inside the office. You should have a front seat to the action, I call it, because you are the one that enables that action to happen. And knowing the vision of the company, knowing where the company is going, knowing what's coming on the horizon in 3, 6, 12 months is something that will set you in good stead to make decisions on behalf of your executive. And that's where a strategic assistant is most important, and it actually adds more value, is when you can start making decisions on behalf of your executive and know that when someone comes back to them with that question, they'll say, yes, that is the way that I want it done. So knowing what your executive knows, knowing the business inside and out is a big part. And then sitting inside that circle. There's no use sitting outside, because when you sit outside, people don't share information. They don't see you as part of the executive. They see you as outside of the executive, someone who does the 3 T's, typing and travel. They don't see you as an information hub or someone that needs to know what is going on. So get inside the circle, speak to your boss, make sure that your executive has let the rest of the executive know that whoever it is here not to take minutes, or they might be here to take minutes, but they also have an opinion and they also have some sort of action into the meeting. They've got things that they're doing for the meeting. And what I also say is always put an agenda item on if you want to get yourself seen, put something on the agenda and put your name next to it and own it. And when you get into that meeting, you have that one point that you talk to where everyone else has got to listen to you. But if you do that, you've got to make sure that you know what you're talking about and you don't waffle about. So get that point on, start small, do a report back on the office, do a report back on staffing or whatever, but get yourself on the agenda so that people know that you're not outside the business, you're not outside the executive, you're actually part of the executive committee, if you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic tip. I would say it's building your confidence as well to get to that point where, because, I did it a lot, speaking in front of committees is something that requires confidence and self-belief, but my advice for that was always, as you said, to be completely prepared in what you were saying and know that situation, know that piece of the agenda inside and out, and have all of the details that you need to be able to speak with confidence. But I think that's such an important thing. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing that. We've got about 10 minutes left before our hour is up. So I just want to move back to the attendees that we've got with us. I want to ask you guys this question. Is there anything more that you would like us to cover over the course that we've I know we're sort of halfway through, but if there's anything that you haven't seen yet that you would like us to go into a bit more detail on, then we can put that either into the next Q&A, or we can try and add some more detail to the modules. So if I leave that question with you, if you let us know on the chat if there's anything more that you'd like to see on the strategic course, that would be fantastic. I just want to finish up talking a little bit more around confidence, because so much of it that we've talked about on the modules so far comes down to having that belief in yourself and having that confidence. And Sherwin, I want to come back to you, because I think for me, it's often something that I talk about around, there's kind of two aspects to it for me. It's the assistant, the kind of old concept of what an assistant is. And obviously such a huge portion of assistants are female. So there's a piece around being more confident as a woman in business. So I want to start with you and talk about the assistant aspect of it, because there is that old kind of stereotype that we have that, you know, is still comes into play. So how have you built the confidence and moved away from being seen as just an assistant into that strategic business partner that you work in now?
So I think, yes, confidence does play a big part in it. But I think, as you said, confidence is built in small steps. No one ever walks into a boardroom and goes and just lays down the law. No one ever and goes, this is me and here I am and this is what I'm doing. It did take me a while. I mean, I started in an industry where 3% are men and 97% are women. So I think to get people to first take me seriously as an assistant was, or an administrative professional was quite a challenge. But what I started doing was, as I said before, I started learning the business inside and out. I started learning about areas that would affect the area that I work in. And I started talking to people as if I was on the same level as them. I don't see levels, because to me, we're all on the same level. We're all working towards the same goal. But what I started doing was, there's so many times where assistants are too afraid to go and talk to the CEO, or talk to the group chair, or talk to someone on the exco, because they're afraid they're going to make a fool of themselves, or they're not going to know what they're talking about. But learning about the business and then going to have those conversations, even if it's a 5-minute conversation about something that you've just researched 5 minutes ago, because my brain is like that. I've got to read and I've got to talk to someone, and then by talking to them, they will make it clearer in my head. So read and talk and become an information hub. And as you become an information hub, you slowly start developing a confidence that actually I can start making a difference. I can start actually delegating, because I think that's the biggest part. Executives find it easy to delegate down. Assistants don't find it easy, because they think it's their position, or their level is to be delegated to. As a strategic partner or a strategic assistant, your role is to delegate on behalf of your executive, and to get things done. I mean, yes, there's a title of business manager, and then there's business support, or whatever the case is. But I mean, as a strategic person, you want to be delegating down and making sure that tasks get done. So for me, what I did was I started learning, I started talking, I started delegating to the reportees of my executive, and I started going, this is what I need. And no, you don't have to take it to her. You can give it to me and I will review it. So I'll let you know if we need anything. And yes, it takes the support. I will say it does take the support of the executive, because if you don't have the support of the executive, no matter what you do, no one is ever going to see you as strategic. They're always going to see you as just the assistant. And then moving into that inner circle, cementing yourself in that inner circle, because once you cement yourself there, they cannot remove you, because everyone will come to you with questions, or they'll come to you for direction when your executive is not around or not available. So for me, it was learning as much as I could, understanding as much as I could, and then learning the art of delegation was a big thing for me, because I never ever thought that I could delegate down to the likes of the senior manager or another exco member, or it always felt weird going, can you please get this done? And then you in the back of your mind, you go, maybe I should have just sent an email, or maybe I should have sent an email from my boss's inbox to them to ask them to do it, because you don't have the faith and the belief in your own title. And I always say titles don't mean anything in business, because we're all in it together. Yes, some people get paid more than other people do, but they've got more responsibility. And you as a strategic assistant is to enable that person to reach their goals. What I did learn too was that in order for me to be strategic, I needed to have a higher level of performance indicators. So I couldn't rely on doing travel and doing typing and doing office management things, ordering stationery, making sure that the kitchen's clean, all of this clean. I needed to start upping my KPIs and aligning that with my executive. So where their KPIs said increase business by 10% in Q1, I knew that was their most important KPI. And I learned as much as I could about that area to ensure that in Q1, we could increase the sales or the revenue of the business. So I think once you start elevating KPIs and tying it into what your executive has, you kind of force yourself to become strategic, and you force yourself to think strategically. And that helps with building the confidence to delegate and to get things done in the organization.
Yeah, I can completely see that, because it becomes part of your being good at your job, doesn't it? And that gives you the confidence in yourself, because then it's tied to reward, recognition, pay, salary, promotions, bonuses, all of that kind of stuff. It becomes much more kind of tangible, doesn't it? I have to be doing this stuff. I have to push myself if I want the rewards and recognition that comes from it. Amanda, if we bring you in just around this confidence piece, how did you, I love the stories that you tell about when you were working as an executive assistant and your growth over the course of your career. How did you build your confidence so that you did move into the strategic position before you moved into the EA Institute?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Confidence is, I love this topic because it's always the thing that everyone says they want. And, I can definitely resonate with that. I know it's always the thing that I wanted. I think that when we think of confidence, we see someone that's confident and we want their superpowers. It's like, I want that. I want to feel like that. I want to look like that. And as the person that's demonstrating confidence, you forget, not that you forget, how hard it's been, but the person observing the person that's confident thinks that they're just confident naturally. They don't realize that confidence doesn't you don't just wake up confident. You have to do the heavy lifting to get confident. You have to do the hard stuff to get confident. Like confidence is a byproduct. It comes after you do the work. It's like, going to the gym and working out. You have to go through that pain to get muscle. You don't just wake up one day and wake up with an abs. I wish that was the case. Unfortunately, it's not. Wouldn't it be amazing? Confidence is exactly the same. So, I think that the first thing I always say is, well, what are you doing to get yourself closer to feeling confident? And usually the answer is, well, just doing what I do. And, I think the thing that shows up for me with this one is that, I remember very distinctly this one moment in my career, my last executive assistant role. At this stage, I thought that I had I demonstrated some confidence, but clearly nowhere near as much as I thought. And I remember distinctly saying that I really wanted to move into this more strategic orientation, more of a business partner role, which is ultimately where I ended up. Which is, really the strategic assistant type role that we now see it morphed into. And I remember saying that to my executive, and him, him saying to me, well, if that's what you want, then you need to tell your body that. You need to start demonstrating that that's what you want. Because, we often say, well, I want this. Why don't people start seeing me like what I want to be? But yet, what are you doing for them to see that that's what you want? And, you know, I think that I would see so many times in meetings that I would go to meetings and I would just have this expectation that people would start seeing me as this business partner, but I wasn't really demonstrating that I was. So it's the things that really resonate with this for me is, you know, who am I being right now? Like, that's the question that I started to drill into myself. Am I being who I am now, or am I being who I'm becoming? Am I being who I want to be? Am I being who I want others to see me as? Or am I being, you know, who I once was? So that was kind of the question that I kept asking myself. And I think, you know, simple, and as simple as this might seem, it's, you know, saying yes to things that are moving you towards your end goal. So if being, you know, really a strategic business partner is your dream and you want that and you want to move into that orientation, then, you know, start asking yourself, when things come to you, opportunities, and it might scare you, maybe putting your hand up and saying, well, I'm going to do this. It scares the hell out of me, but I'm going to find a way. And that was certainly that orientation of saying yes and working out how became part of my being. So I just started saying yes to things. And I think the important thing to note with saying yes is that it's not going down the path of saying yes to everything, because that can also be in the way for assistants, is that they don't know how to say no. I don't mean it in that frame here. What I'm referring to is things that are going to push you out of your comfort zone, that's moving you towards your end goal. So the question then becomes, is this aligned with who I want to become? Yes. So you almost have this internal checklist. Is this thing that's landed on my desk something that's aligned to who I want to become? Yes, tick. Is this going to challenge me? Tick. Does it make me scared or nervous? Tick. Then I have to say yes. There is no other way. You have to say yes. And when you start bringing that level of intensity to it, you'll start, you'll find a way. You really will. I remember the amount of growth that I had in 12 months is out of this world. I think about that and I just think it's amazing what can happen when you put intention behind it. I started saying yes to, at that point, I'd never done public speaking in my life. And I remember an opportunity to speak to one of our clients, executive assistant cohort. And I went, yep, okay, I'll do it. Had no idea how I would. And I just did. And you just do. And I think, that's a really important part to this, is that you start, having, what's that checklist? What is it? Is it ticking all the things? Then I have to do it. There's no other way. You just have to, and find a way, and you certainly will, and you will surprise yourself in the process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm reading a book at the moment called Atomic Habits. And one of the things that, it's a great book, one of the things he says almost immediately is when you want to start building better or more positive habits, is to ask yourself that question. If whatever the habit is that you want to build, so for example, it was being healthier, it was when you are about to do something that you have always done that's not a positive, is to say to yourself, is this what a healthy person would do? Same for organized or confident. Is this what a confident person would do? And if the answer is no, then it's not the correct path. And the answer is yes, that it is. And it's starting to visualize, as we talked about at the beginning, having that pause and that self-awareness. Start asking yourself those questions around which way do you want your personality and your habits to shift. And it's by starting to see a kind of a personality or something that you want to become, and how you get there is start saying, is that how that kind of person would behave? I think it's really powerful. And then the last thing I would say is, it's something else that you touched on, Amanda, is around confidence, is that just trying things, having that room for failure. And something, again, assistants are so, I think we're so expected to always be 100% correct, always our work has to be on point. And yes, it does, but we also have to give ourselves room to fail. And our executives should also be giving us room to fail, because that's where the growth happens. You're not going to do a perfect thing every time, especially when you're learning and you're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. You've got to expect that some things are going to go wrong. Especially as we are moving into a strategic business partnership, there are things where you are going to be proactive and take initiative, and it's not going to quite work out how you want it to. As scary as that is, you have to give yourself permission to fail occasionally. Yeah, scary as that is. Okay. An hour goes so quickly with the two of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join the live Q&A today. You guys are so amazing. You're just the wealth of knowledge that you both have is amazing, and I know our participants just get so much from both of you. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining. Yeah, I think I just want to touch on, there was a question in the group chat about difference between strategic assistant and chief of staff. And I think it is, the strategic assistant to me is someone who is there to elevate the role of, or to elevate their executive, where a chief of staff is almost like a wrangler of sorts. And a chief of staff is someone who is there to ensure that all the different pies that the executive have is baked at the same time, or comes out the oven at the same time, where the strategic assistant is someone who actually makes sure and measures out the ingredients to put that pie together. And that's the analogy that I use, because a lot of people confuse the two and they say a strategic assistant is the same as a chief of staff. No, a chief of staff's role is to make sure that whatever the executive is busy with, that they all tie up together, where the strategic assistant makes sure that those different things get done. So I don't know if that does. And then it's also terminology. I mean, in the US, chief of staff and strategic assistant are used interchangeably because they think it's the same thing. Where in South Africa, for instance, a chief of staff is actually a member of the executive committee that sits alongside the CEO and the COO. And a strategic assistant is, or strategic business partner, as we called, is someone that allows them and enables them to reach their goals.
Oh, great. I've got a fantastic session that Hallie Warner did for one of the virtual summits, I think maybe a year ago. And I can add that to the group chat, to the community that we have, so that you guys can see the difference, because Hallie was a executive assistant and she moved into a chief of staff role, so she's got a good understanding of the differences between the two. So Manuela, I'll add that to the community that we have, so you can watch that. I think it's about a 30-minute video. Okay, so that's everything for today. Thanks everybody that joined. If you do have any more questions for the next Q&A that we've got, which will be towards kind of module 9 or 10, then let us know, and I'll make sure that we get those questions answered as well. And in the meantime, if you have anything that you want to ask me or push out to Amanda or Sherwin, then you have the community, or you can email me separately and I will make sure that we have answers for you. So again, Sherwin and Amanda, thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be back on another one of these in probably about 5 weeks' time.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me. Well,
cheers, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.